Be here with you today. I'm Miranda Combs. I'm the investigative reporter for WKYT TV in Lexington, Kentucky. I also anchor WKYT News at 6:30 on the CW Lexington. As a reporter, I can tell you there is an intentionality in Kentucky's labor cabinet when it comes to apprenticeships. In a short period of time, they've partnered with 175 businesses and schools to connect students with real-world opportunities. We've covered new programs like Justice to Journeyman, along with new pushes for Kentuckians to rethink the role an apprenticeship can play in anyone's life. I was just told that Norton's hospital nurses have just joined the apprenticeship program. All this while dealing with a workforce that desperately needs to be re-engaged on multiple levels. Secretary Ramsey and his cabinet are literally changing lives, and it's been a privilege to report it happening. Please welcome Secretary Derrick Ramsey.
Good morning. Come on, I know it's raining out there. Let's try it again. Good morning.
Good morning.
All righty, thank you very much. I am so excited. And I'm excited because for some time we've been looking forward to this day, the apprenticeship. And as I stated last night, for some reason or other, this has been a secret across our state. Well, I think the secret is getting out now. And I am so thankful for that opportunity. But also, I want to take just a minute to talk about this gentleman that I work for, because so many times you're doing things, but if you aren't supported by your bosses, it makes it a little bit tougher. But from day one, our governor has supported this initiative. And so I am proud and pleased to introduce our governor, Matt Bevin. Thank you.
Got to readjust that mic just a little bit, about a foot difference or so probably. Thank you for being here, especially for those of you. Some of you may have spent the night within walking distance. Others of you have made your way in today, and as you know, the roads are a little jammed up, so I imagine folks will continue to trickle in. Thank you for making the time to be here. It really does matter the degree to which we apply ourselves to something. Ralph Waldo Emerson, who was the great writer and poet and thinker of 100 some odd years ago, once noted that nothing great was ever achieved without enthusiasm. And one of the things I love about Secretary Ramsey is he's brought a level of enthusiasm to the whole idea of workforce development in a way that really does separate Kentucky from a number of other states. There are many people pursuing this. There is not a governor you will talk to, and I talk to most of them, some of them very frequently. The number one issue for every single governor is workforce development. Number one issue. Everybody has other issues at any point in time, and certainly those in Texas and Florida, as we know, have had some very significant issues on their plates that crop up. But those will be eventually addressed, and that will go back to really having to focus on workforce development. It is a need for employers everywhere. Where is the workforce of the 21st century going to come from? Patterns are changing among young people. People hear about the millennial generation, and I'm not going to sit here and pretend to be an expert on it, although I do have 9 children, some of whom are probably the tail end of the millennial generation, and then I have a whole bunch of whatever the next generation is. But I will say this. It's a different idea. The idea that you go to a company and you work there for 20, 30, 40 years and that's it. People have more jobs now and less careers. Now, I don't know if that's good. I don't know if it's bad. It just seems to be something that we've seen. So how do we train people for the jobs that exist? That's really the $64,000 question. That's really what the purpose of this summit is about. How do we train people for jobs that need to be done and jobs that are going to continue to be done and need to be done as we move forward? I've shared often, and I think it's true enough, that there's an old saying from scriptures, without vision, the people will perish. I think it's very true. I think it's true spiritually. I think it's true for a nation. I think it's true for a state. I think it's true for any company, for that matter. If you don't know what your vision is, what your mission statement is, your odds of attaining it are certainly limited. So my vision, I've been very clear, my vision for Kentucky is a simple one. Let me ask you all a question, and some of you may have heard me ask this question before, but I will ask anyone here, feel free to shout it out, if you wanted to engineer and manufacture something to the highest degree of excellence, engineered, manufactured to the highest degree of excellence, you had to do it in continental Europe. In some country in continental Europe, where would you start? Germany. I mean, 100% of the time. 100% of the time that I've asked that question, that's what people think of. Does that mean you couldn't do it well in Italy or Switzerland or the Netherlands? Of course not. There's tremendous abilities to engineer and manufacture in all those places and others as well. But Germany instinctively is at the top of people's mind when they think of high-quality engineering and manufacturing. And yet Europe is a fairly good-sized continent. Now, how is it that they own it when, in fact, they're clearly not the only place that you can do it? Is because they have focused with a sense of urgency for decades on training a workforce that delivers that in people's minds, and it comes out of an apprenticeship program. Secretary Ramsey, Secretary Heiner, myself, and some others from this administration traveled a few months ago and spent some time in Switzerland and Germany looking at the apprenticeship program. What can we learn from those that we would hope to emulate? If I were to ask you the same question, if you wanted to engineer and manufacture something to the highest degree of excellence, you had to do it in a single state in America, where would you go? I won't make you shout it out, but I'll bet you in this room we'd get 5, 10, 15 different answers. One of which I hope would be Kentucky, but truth be told, you could come up with any number of a dozen other answers, all of which would be as defensible, as arguably correct as Kentucky is. What that tells me is that nobody owns it. Nobody owns it like Germany owns it. And if nobody owns it, that means it's available to be owned. And we're going to own it. It's not that complicated. So I'm telling you. So I'm a guy with a simple vision. I hope you've figured this out. And my vision is that Kentucky becomes, straight up, without question, instinctively in people's minds, the center of engineering and manufacturing excellence in America, period. Doesn't mean we'll be the only place. Doesn't mean we'll be the place everyone should come. But when people think we want to engineer and manufacture something to the highest degree of excellence, where should we go? I want, as instinctively as you thought of Germany, for people to think of, well, obviously we need to look at Kentucky. Does that mean they'll all come here? Of course not. But if they come here first, do you think we get our fair share? You bet. And that's really the whole point. It was made mention, and indeed it's true, that Norton's has started an apprenticeship program, and indeed just graduated 125 nurses in an apprenticeship class. And I was over there the day that they were graduating, and it was the level of excitement, the energy, the enjoyment of the class, but also the excitement on the part of the people that were in the administration, because for those of you in healthcare, you know it's not easy to find people who are trained and ready to fill the gap. Demographics we're aging, we're getting older, we have needs. Something happened to me recently that I don't even want to tell you about, but I found myself on receiving end. I actually dislocated my shoulder, which if any of you have ever done that, I wouldn't suggest it as a way to spend any portion of your day. But for several hours I was in dire need, and there was somebody with good medical skills who took care of me ultimately. And these are the kind of things that, frankly, we need more of. And so whatever the path that has been traditional may be changing. Apprenticeships is where we're going. I happen to be the owner of a little company that was started by my great-great-great-grandfather in 1832. He and his brother were indentured servants, which at that time was a form of apprenticeship. They basically were 2 of 9 kids, and I don't know why those 2, but they were basically given to a fellow who had some skills and was trusted to bring them home after a year or 2, and well fed and well maintained and with some knowledge. And so they were basically indentured servants. They went away, they went to another state, and they worked for this fellow, and they learned a skill, and they were then able to come back and deploy that skill. The apprenticeship program is a modern day equivalent of the very same thing. Very same thing. We are basically training young people for jobs that actually exist. We have our Secretary of Education here, Stephen Pruitt, and I'll tell you, we're doing a lot on the education front in this state as well. But I'll tell you one thing, this is a man responsible for how we get people from K through 12. We think about what comes in the post-secondary years. It's interesting because this idea and this notion we've perpetrated for a long time is that everybody immediately needs to go on to college is something we need to rethink. Doesn't mean everyone shouldn't consider that as a possibility, but if in Kentucky, and indeed it is the case now, that we spend 60%, which is awesome, 60%, of our young people immediately go on to some kind of post-secondary school, and that's encouraging, and that should make us feel happy, except for the fact that only 20% actually come out the other end of the tunnel at any point in time with a post-secondary degree. That shouldn't make us feel as happy. It means that we're sending a lot of people down a path that at least at that point in time is not the right path for them. And we need to rethink how we are preparing people for working in the 21st century. There's 190,000 jobs, probably more, but about 190,000 jobs that are open jobs in Kentucky alone right now. I mean, how is it that we have this disconnect between people who want to work and jobs that are desperate for someone to do them? It's because we're not training people for the jobs that exist. And the apprenticeship program, whether it's in the medical field, whether it is in manufacturing, whether it's in high tech, whatever the case might be, is increasingly becoming clear to be the path through which Kentucky will lead the nation. Many states are pursuing this. I would dare to say that even now we are as good as anyone on this front. But I would hesitate to say we're better head and shoulders above everybody, but we're going to be. And indeed, you know, we've got the right guy who's already himself head and shoulders above everybody to lead the charge. And I mean it sincerely. This is a guy with a sense of passion and urgency, and great things are going to be accomplished because his enthusiasm is contagious. And I'm grateful to Derrick Ramsey. I'm grateful to Secretary Ramsey and Secretary Heiner, Secretary Gill and Vivek. We've got folks, you know, Mike Nemes, who works with Derrick in the Labor Department. We've got a lot of people focused on bringing this forward in Kentucky in a way that will be not only to our advantage, and believe me, when I'm out talking, and you can bet I don't know if you've all seen the chart. Somebody, if you haven't, just Google it up. The chart, it's a picture of America, and it says every city in America that says they're the right place for Amazon's next headquarters. Have you seen that map? It's a map of the United States that's just nothing but dots. So everybody, of course, wants the next Amazon headquarters. What does Amazon want? They want a place where they can go and hire 50,000 people. Everybody wants the Toyota Mazda plant to be in their state. What does Toyota and Mazda want? They want to go where they can employ thousands and thousands of highly trained people. So believe me, we're in the running for that. But one of the things that gives me a sense of comfort that we have a good shot on these fronts is the fact that indeed we do have a good program. And we have both a good post-secondary education system, but we also have a good technical school system. And this is something that some of us of a certain age, we used to call it the VOC-Tech, and that was considered sort of a pejorative term. Well, if you don't go to college, you have to go to the VOC-Tech. Well, where I grew up, most kids didn't even go to the VOC-Tech. But I'll tell you what, we need to get back to this idea. I'll close with one little comment, and that is this. There is not far from here, just 20 miles to the east, there is a company in Shelbyville that makes all the ribs, among other things, for the Boeing 787, the Dreamliner. One of the most advanced, arguably the most advanced commercial aircraft in the world. And those titanium ribs that are made through a fabrication process that is innovative and novel in ways that have never previously been done, that is overseen by a gentleman who grew up here in Kentucky, didn't go to college. Every one of those ribs costs $10,000, and there's multiple ribs in a single aircraft, and they're made just up the road. And the guy who oversees that project came out of high school and just wanted to work, had skills, had knowledge, ended up going to work. He has ultimately gone back to school. 10 plus years later, he went back and got engineering degrees that were needed to continue to advance. We need to rethink the methodology. It doesn't mean that the path is wrong. It's just the point at which someone gets on a path or what circuitous route they might take to get on the proper path is something we need to rethink. The very final thing I'll say is this. It isn't just the kids that need to go on field trips. It's awesome that we introduce young people to this idea of advanced manufacturing, additive manufacturing, 21st century manufacturing, which is much more likely to involve somebody using mechatronics and using a laptop and an iPad than it is somebody with a wrench. That's just reality. We need to start to rethink who are the people that are going on these trips. And I would encourage parents to start going. I would encourage superintendents, and I would encourage principals and teachers and guidance counselors to actually start going on these trips and to learn the difference between what's in their minds in some respects and what's actually out there. Kentucky needs it. America needs it. The future of our economic development needs it. I thank you for having a heart for this, for a passion for this. It's something that's very near and dear to my heart as well. I'm excited to be able to share it with so many people in this administration. And I thank those of you for being here who are going to help us make it happen, because it's a two-way street. Some of you need this as much as anyone else. And so we're here to work with you. Our government, our administration is open to help you. And through Secretary Ramsey and his team, we will do whatever we can to make sure that a generation from now and a whole lot sooner, if we have anything to say about it, that when people say we want something engineered and manufactured to the highest degree of excellence in America, where are we going to start? We're going to go to Kentucky. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Governor Bevin. The first time I saw Secretary Ramsey, I just thought he was a really tall guy. I had no idea that he was actually the first African-American starting quarterback for UK in 1975, went on to have a successful 9-year career in the NFL, winning a Super Bowl ring in 1981. He went on to become a community relations officer for UK, Deputy Secretary of Commerce during the Fletcher administration, athletics director at Coppin State University in Baltimore, and now Kentucky's Secretary of Labor. To break down registered apprenticeships, please welcome again Secretary Derrick Ramsey.
Well, I'm glad there was someone between the governor and I don't think I have much to say, but thank you very much for being here, and goodbye, right? Again, I can't tell you, I can't explain or put in words how excited I am about this day. And the reason I'm excited about this day is, as the governor stated, he wants us to be the manufacturing hub of America. And the thing I love about that also is the fact that he's challenged me and my team. And I've said this publicly, and I'll say it today, I think that I have the greatest team in state government. Mike Nemus has been invaluable. He's an old guy that was with the union. And he understands that whole concept of how union people think. So he's been invaluable, and I go down the line. But let me talk to you about how I see this thing playing out. An interesting part about that is, you know, when our team gets together, we talk about what is going to be the toughest thing, where are the barriers going to be. And for years and years, what has occurred is that the educators have simply thought that a person getting a baccalaureate degree ensures your success. And so there's been this silo, if you would, vocational education. Well, I'm here to tell you today that that no longer exists here in Kentucky, as evidenced by Stephen Pruitt, Dr. Pruitt, our K-12 commissioner, as evidenced by Hal Heiner, our workforce development secretary. We are working together as a team because we are Team Kentucky. As simple as that. And so it's interesting, as I move around the state of Kentucky, there's a constant ask and a constant cry of, Secretary, we need skilled laborers. We need skilled laborers. And so I'm going to back you up just a little bit. I graduated from high school in 1974. During that time, there were two on-ramps, if you would, to success. One on-ramp was college prep. The other on-ramp was vocational. What's happened over the last 40 years? The vocation has been stigmatized out, squeezed out, or flat just closed out. And so we're going to change that. We have partners today in Dr. Pruitt. And one of the things that Dr. Pruitt and I, we're going to finally get that opportunity today. We've talked about this for over a year. That being that we want to be on the stage together. So the folk understand that there's no longer a wall. That wall has been torn down. There are no longer silos in state government. That wall has been torn down. We're working together because we are one Kentucky. And we want the best for Kentucky. And it's easy for me to say that because I've had the privilege of living in a number of states. And I know the perception of Kentucky. I know some of my friends, in particular out west, they still think we don't wear shoes over here. They still think that. But the interesting part about that is now when we start talking about this apprentice notion, and one of the people that you'll hear from later on, from the National Governors Association, and we have some other friends here from DC, they wanted to come and see what we're doing. Because the interesting part now is when they go to meetings, you know what they're talking about? They're talking about Kentucky and what we're doing. We're no longer the tail of the dog, we're the nose now. And as I committed to the governor, I told him we were going to be the best. I told him that. If it means us working 18 hours a day to ensure that, that's what we're going to do. Because the people of Kentucky deserve that. They deserve a fighting chance just like the rest of America. So we're going to make sure wherever possible, this will occur. And so my team is out all around the state of Kentucky. And I'm proud to say that this time last year, we had 2,100 apprentices. Fast forward to today, we have almost 3,200 apprentices. And so we're moving. We're moving fast, we're moving furiously, and we're going to get it done. And so in this audience today, so that everybody kind of understands who's here, we have educators here, we have industry here, and we have some other folk here that just trying to check us out. Not sure about it just yet. But by the end of the day, I think you'll be more than convinced that being part of our apprenticeship program is the way of Kentucky, and you want to get on. Interesting enough today, the speakers that are come that you'll hear later today, Dr. Lurman, I read his bio and I was like, whoa. You know, I got my degree in communications, but Doc, I am a frustrated economist at heart. That's what I am. And so when you start thinking of why should I be involved? Why should I be a part of this whole apprentice notion? Why should I do that as a business owner? Well, he's going to answer a lot of that today. He's going to be talking about ROI, return on investment, because it makes sense. It makes sense. And second, when you start to think about, as a business owner, why would I do this? Well, there's something called a revolving door. When people start and then they quit on you, you got to start over again. That costs money. That costs time. That costs effort. And so we're going to try to answer some of these questions for you today. Also, in the second part this afternoon, we're going to have some breakout sessions where we have Dr. Box, who heads up KCTCS. And what a relationship we're starting to grow. Because on the personal side, I was in higher ed for about 16 years, so I understand how academia thinks. And I'm here to tell you that when you have people in higher ed that are willing to say, we will work with changing the curriculums, that doesn't happen. That does not happen. In higher ed, this is their story, they're sticking to it, and that's it. And so I was telling Doc, because I go out and talk around to the business owners, and I said this to President Capilouto just a week ago. And I asked the question, what are you doing to accommodate the workplace? Because what's happening is a lot of young people, or people in general, are going in debt to get this degree, and then once they get the degree, they can't find employment. That's happening on a daily basis. My last job, I was athletic director. I got a chance to see that firsthand. I would have athletes that would graduate 3 years, 3.5 years, 4 years, and they'd have $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 worth of debt in some cases, and then go out and find a $30,000 a year job. I thought that was criminal. For them to take on this kind of debt and couldn't find a job that pays any more than $30,000, $35,000. It's criminal to me. And so, as you all are aware of, with this notion of apprentice, earn and learn. Earn, then you go learn it. And then it makes out for a better product simply because holistically, now a person is getting an opportunity to apply what they just learned, rather than learning and some years later you hope to get to apply it. So this is a great notion. Also, what I'm excited about, and the governor spoke on that with Norton's Healthcare, because so many times in our world, everyone thinks that if you're going to be an apprentice, it has to be in construction. That's far from the truth. Far from the truth. A month or so ago, governor was there at Norton's Hospital. That was the first apprenticeship in our country in healthcare and nursing. And so that's why it's easy for me to say now that Kentucky will no longer tail. We're out front. We are leading the way. There are a few of them turkeys that are right there with us, but we're going to pull away. Because the thing about being Kentuckian, we have the heart of a thoroughbred. Rather you're in Louisville, Kentucky, with the cards here, I know, or over in my part, over in the blue part of the state. But at the end of the day, we all have that thoroughbred spirit. We want to win. That's all I know, is winning. And I know some of my team, sometimes they get tired of hearing it, but I'm sorry, Mike. This is what we do. And so I'm delighted that you're here today to hear our message and understand that we are going to focus on the apprenticeship. We're going to focus on it. And until someone gives me a really good reason why I shouldn't, we're going to push even that much harder. Because I believe that once you get folk the opportunity to see what's really out there. And let's talk about the apprentice. These are numbers I'm certain that you all know. The average apprentice in our country, $50,000 a year in salary. $50,000. And again, let's go back to the thoroughbred spirit. There's nothing in Kentucky about us that's average. Nothing. We like winners. We like winners, plain and simple. And so when a young person or a person, period, can start at $50,000, and this is working in an environment where you work for someone, where you also may have the opportunity to work for yourself. I know the governor, he tells us about a friend of his that was a doctor. And so this guy came to repair this doctor's, I think it was plumber. And so the guy comes in and says, "Doctor, I understand you have a problem. I'm here to fix it." He said, "But first I want to tell you my service charge is $100. And he said, "Okay, that's fine, that's fair." So the guy goes in there and works for a couple of hours and comes back and said, "Doc, I think you're good to go. Here's your bill." He handed the person the bill, and the guy goes, "Oh, my goodness. Like, all this, you were just here?" He says, "Yeah, I know, Doc." He says, "That's what I charge." He said, "You sure about this? I mean, this is accurate?" "Yeah, it's accurate. I was here, for 2 hours, and, I told you what my service charge was." And he just frowned and moaned and complained. And so he finally said, "Doc, I understand. When I was a doctor, I felt that way too." All right? So understand that as an apprentice, as a journeyman, as a journeywoman, whatever you want to make is right there in front of you. It's right there. And so what we are doing is creating an opportunity so that these folk can earn monies to take care of themselves, to take care of their families, and to be someone of pride. Because during the downturn, I tell Secretary Heiner all the time, I said, of all of us secretaries, you have the toughest job. And I've told Hal this, if I've told him once, I've told him 100 times. And the reason I tell him that is because for us, what we're doing is just getting people inspired. But for what he has to do, there's between 160 and 200,000 Kentuckians that after the 2008-2009 downturn did not come back to the workplace. That's his responsibility to get them back to the workplace. So we all have our jobs, but the interesting part about this is that we're working together. I'm going to support Hal at every turn. I'm going to support Vivek at every turn. I'm going to support Dr. Pruitt at every turn, because we are Kentucky. So again, I want to thank you all for being here, because this is something that my team has dreamed up over the past 6 months to 8 months that we wanted to do. We felt it necessary to make the people of Kentucky aware of all the resources that you have. And my policy is this, and I've said this from day one, and I'll be saying this until I leave here. My door is always open to any Kentuckian. My phone lines are always open to any Kentuckian. So there's no excuse. I know how things were done in the past. They're no longer done that way. We all work for you. We work for you. That's my boss, but at the end of the day, we work for you, the people of the Commonwealth of Kentucky. And I am proud to have this opportunity to do so, because what I'm doing now is repaying a debt that some 40-some years ago, when you supported me, and that wasn't the in vogue or cool thing to do, to support an African-American quarterback. But for some reason or another, Kentuckians look past that, and I'm thankful. And so what I'm doing now is repaying that debt. You supported me in my time of need. Now Kentucky is in its time of need, and me and my team, we're going to be there to support you. So thank you very much for being here for our first inaugural Apprentice Summit. I can't thank you enough for being here. Thank you.